Hello everybody and welcome back to LRN, the show where we react to all of the latest F1 news, rumours and headlines. And today, a really strange one as we hear that Ross Brawn is being linked with a return to Ferrari, the team where he won 5 consecutive world championships with, of course, Michael Schumacher, and enjoyed so much success. Could he truly be in line for what would be a phenomenal return and an unlikely return to Ferrari to replace Mattia Binotto? If you have missed it, we did cover the story in the news that we expect Mattia Binotto to be removed from his position imminently. So if you haven't seen that video yet, make sure to check that one out in the description below. Really big story on Binotto, but now of course they're looking at, and all the stories are about who's going to replace them. We've even heard Andreas Seidel has rejected the position at Ferrari, so maybe calling into question maybe the longevity of the position. Maybe some people, whether or not it's true or not, I don't know. But if it's true that certain team principals or certain candidates for that role are rejecting it, maybe then it's because they see that position as potentially a poison chalice. Maybe it's just you're set up to fail. They don't see it. Then maybe they see it as basically an exit to the sport where he's got a good position with McLaren. He knows he can build for the future. He knows they've got grand plans for 2025 and beyond. Maybe with Ferrari, they see it as you either win immediately or that will be it. Although I guess with Binotto you could argue that's proof to the contrary. He hasn't achieved much in the time he's been there, and he's been given loads of time in the role, so maybe that's not the case. To be honest, I don't really think they would have gone for Seidel. I do think they want either someone already linked to the Ferrari family, like Vasseur being currently the favourite, or an Italian. They do like to hire an Italian into Ferrari, so that'd be their go-to. But Ross Brawn is a different option because he's already got that history with Ferrari. He's already got that family link to the Scuderia. So I think he avoids the Italian conversation, at least from that perspective. And of course, he is, along with Michael Schumacher, the face of the success that they had back in the 2000s. So certainly, if they were going to bring anyone back, if they could cherry pick someone to come back to Ferrari, you have to think it would be Ross Brawn. Certainly, he would be my choice. If you could go and get anyone to come back and compete with the likes of Red Bull, Mercedes, and Toto Wolff and Christian Horner and the big personalities out there in the world of F1 at the moment, Binotto, I just don't think he holds himself in the regard. He doesn't carry himself in the way that other people in the paddock do, like Toto, like Christian. I don't think he has that level of personality to sort of stand up to those guys, and I think that will bleed into the team. And I do think that he could have done more to achieve success with Ferrari personally. But again, if you want to see that in more detail, check out the video in the description. We really do go through why I think getting rid of Binotto is the right way to go. So do check that video out if you haven't seen it. But I think with Ross Brawn, look, you look at the success that he had. Of course, he had success with Benetton, again with Michael, and then his 5 years of success with Ferrari. And then, of course, he went on to have success with Brawn GP, famously with his own team, his own moniker. He obviously acquired the Honda team back in 2008 and went on to win the Constructors in 2009 with Brawn GP and Jenson Button, proving he could do it with someone other than Michael Schumacher. So congratulations to Ross Brawn for that one. But it was obviously a fantastic, one-off season. But I think the key thing here for me is, do we genuinely believe this to be true? Is there genuine interest from Ferrari to go and get Ross Brawn? And I'd say at the moment, probably not. I do think this is rumour. It's coming from Italian outlets that they are interested and that they've shortlisted Ross Brawn for the position. I put this firmly in the rumour column at the moment. I don't think there's anything substantial going on here. I think it would be a massive surprise if we saw Ross Brawn take the position at Ferrari, though he could see it. Maybe, maybe if he's not really enjoying his role and it is sort of closer to the head of F1, really driving the changes in Formula One, which I think he's relishing, to be honest. I think he really enjoys that position. And if he was to go back to Ferrari, I think it would be in the hunt of those glory days. And I just don't personally see it happening. I think these reports are wide of the mark. And if they are interested in Ross Brawn, I don't think he would take the position. But that's just my view. I'm still firmly in the camp that Vasseur is the favourite to get that position and probably will get it. And again, I covered that in more detail on the Binotto to leave video. But certainly for me at the moment, really loose reports. It is just basically a statement from Italian outlets saying Ross Brawn has been shortlisted for the Ferrari role. And if I'm being honest, if Brawn's available, you don't shortlist him, you just get him. There is no one that can compete with that's available with his history, with his success in the sport. I think he'd be as heavily wanted into any team throughout the paddock as someone like Adrian Newey, to go in and truly make a massive difference to their team, to the future success of that team in F1. So certainly, if he was available, I don't think he's on the shortlist. I think they just get him. The fact that he has apparently been shortlisted, to me, says that it isn't true. Because I don't think you can compare, maybe because he's obviously been out of the game for a while in that perspective, but I don't think you lose it in this sport. I think he's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt his qualities, and as I say, if he's available, you go get him. So that's my view on it anyway. Let me know your views on first of all, whether you think Ross Brawn would be interested in the Ferrari position, or whether or not you think he would be the right choice for the Ferrari position. Let me know in the comments below. All of your thoughts, really interested to know what you think. And the other thing I want to move on to, though, is Red Bull and what's been going on recently. Of course, Daniel Ricciardo coming back to Red Bull. And really strange, just seeing how, and this is all conjecture from me. This is just an opinion piece from me, sort of reading into what's going on, and looking at the pictures, looking at the relationship between Horner and Ricciardo, and thinking about what's been going on between Perez and Verstappen, and the way that Verstappen's been dealing with the situation, the way that he came on the radio and he very much felt, almost offended by the fact that Red Bull would even ask him to help out his teammate. And we know we've had the explanations around what happened at Monaco, and I understand that there's maybe reasons for that. But the sheer fact that, he said the team should have known the way he thought and felt without them even having a conversation. That was his immediate reaction. So from my perspective, I think that there's definitely something going on with Ricciardo going back to Red Bull, because we've all seen the conversations with Ricciardo. If you've watched Drive to Survive, if you've paid attention to the interviews, and the media work that Ricciardo's done, and the multiple times he's talked, he has never come across as someone willing to accept a reserve role in a team. He's never. I get that he was having a year out anyway. I understand that he needed to fall back in love with the sport, but he's just never. For him to be so happy in that third drive position, we saw how happy he was to go back there. And when he announced he was going back there initially, I was thinking, he's not going to be that happy. It's going to be a bittersweet moment, sort of happy to go back to Red Bull where he's had a bit of success, but not happy to be a third driver. Obviously, he left because he was worried about becoming a second driver to Verstappen, and the fact that he felt they were going to push Verstappen more than him. And to go back there as the reserve driver, I feel like there's something else going on. And he's talked about constantly this 2024 opportunity, and the fact, when I've looked at it and I've looked at it closely, there hasn't been an opportunity on the grid for him to go to. And it's becoming, in my mind, more and more clear that they plan on replacing Perez with Ricciardo. And this is, again, pure rumour, pure conjecture from my perspective, but I'm really starting to think that their plan is essentially to replace Perez with Ricciardo. And I think the reason for that is Verstappen. I think Verstappen has thrown a hissy fit about the situation that happened with Perez, about the way he feels he was treated and should be treated as champion of the team. And I think Red Bull and Christian Horner are absolutely petrified of Verstappen leaving the team. And you may think that's ridiculous. You might think that he would never leave, but we've seen recently reports from Jos Verstappen, him coming out and saying Verstappen's done with it. He can't be dealing with all this media nonsense. He can't be dealing with all of the drama that goes on within F1. He's talked about how some drivers should just leave. Verstappen himself has talked about how some drivers should just leave the sport if they can't deal with it. And it all just alludes to me to this idea that Red Bull are desperately trying to keep Verstappen happy. They're desperately trying to make sure he doesn't leave. He's even talked about retirement, and yes, not until the end of his contract, but that would only take him into his early 30s. And he just, I think he's maybe similar to Rosberg, that he's come in and he's won the championship. He's now won it twice, and maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to go and win 7 championships. He doesn't need to break those huge records. He feels like he's proven himself. He's achieved one dream, and there's other things in his life that he wants to do, and that's what he said. But I think Red Bull and Christian Horner just desperately want to keep Verstappen on side, and I think it could be being driven by Verstappen and behind the scenes that he doesn't want Perez as his teammate anymore. And they're looking at Ricciardo as a, obviously a lesser Ricciardo, someone not as confident, not as on top of his game as he was when he left Red Bull initially. And maybe Verstappen's looking at that and seeing a good potential teammate, someone he knows that he could beat. Of course, Perez is that as well, but I think that the feeling of animosity between the two, maybe more than what we're seeing being displayed now in the media. Of course, you only really get a feeling of how drivers feel when they're in the car, when they're on the team radio, when they're reacting in the moment. And I think we saw with Perez the way he reacted when Verstappen didn't move out of the way from him in Brazil. He very much reacted whether that's his true colours statement, and I think that is truly how he feels. I think that is truly how Perez feels about Verstappen. I think Verstappen knows that, and I think Verstappen, therefore, because he knows that Perez doesn't really like him, I think he's going to want Perez removed and bring someone in he gets on with better, and I think that could be Daniel Ricciardo. So whether or not that happens, it won't happen immediately. This will happen maybe in the middle of the 2023 season. We know Red Bull aren't afraid to get rid of a driver mid-season, but I think he keeps talking about 2024, and I think there's something going on there that they will get rid of Perez at the end of the 2023 season. We could see Ricciardo move into that, and that opens up in a whole nother kettle of worms, because I think Nick de Vries should be really upset if that happens. I'm obviously at this point assuming de Vries is going to do really well in that car. I said when he was looking at going to AlphaTauri, and when it was announced that he should have stayed in the Mercedes family, I feel like he had a drive ready set at Williams that would have allowed him more freedom of movement between other teams if he ends up getting stuck, because at AlphaTauri, he really could get stuck there. We've seen with Gasly how long it's taken him to get out of the Red Bull family and go and do his own thing, and good luck to Gasly at Alpine. But with de Vries, I think he's a really good talent. I really expect him to do well in Formula 1. We saw how well he drove at Monza in his only GP of the season, and I do expect him to build on that performance. And if he can truly have a really good season, I would have liked to have seen a fully Dutch team of Nick de Vries and Max Verstappen at Red Bull. I think that was the ideal situation. After Perez left, de Vries came in, and if they're looking now at Ricciardo coming in, because that's what Verstappen wants, I think de Vries could end up getting stuck at AlphaTauri for a long time. He isn't as young as the other new drivers to F1. I think he's 27 at the moment. So that could be really disappointing for de Vries. But I think for me, it's complete opinion. It's completely based on a feeling, based on what we've seen said by Horner, the pictures we've seen with him and Ricciardo, and how happy Ricciardo's been in his interviews, the things that have been said between Perez and Verstappen recently. I just feel like something's bubbling up, and it could end up with Ricciardo in that seat with Max Verstappen in 2024. Let me know your thoughts though in the comments below. Do you agree with that? Do you think there's any chance Ricciardo stealing Perez's seat either again halfway through 2023 or into 2024? Do you see Perez continuing as the teammate of Max Verstappen beyond that point? Or would you, like me, want to see Nick de Vries first of all do well in AlphaTauri, and if he earns his opportunity, get a chance at Red Bull in an all Dutch lineup with Max Verstappen at Red Bull? That's personally what I'd want to see happen. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe on the bottom right hand side and hit a like on the video if you did enjoy it. Make sure to hit the bell icon as well to be notified of all future uploads, as we'll be reacting to all of the latest F1 news, headlines and stories throughout the off season, and of course into the 2023 season as well. Otherwise, just thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great day. Goodbye.